Farzana was incredibly caring and attentive to Rashid. Despite being younger, she understood Rashid's needs deeply and always made an effort to support him emotionally and physically. Farzana wasn't just nurturing, she was also generous in fulfilling Rashid's personal and intimate needs, ensuring their relationship remained strong and balanced. Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into another chilling real-life event from around the world. This time, our story takes us to the country of Bangladesh, specifically the city of Tangail, located in the Tangail district on the banks of the Lohajang River, within the Dhaka division. This story is as bizarre as it is complicated. It involves siblings competing for the attention of a young man by trying to outdo each other in their care and affection. Things take an even stranger turn as they end up sharing love schedules and eventually fighting over an older man. What's the full story behind this unusual case? Stay tuned as we break it all down in detail. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. And hey, share this story with your friends. It deserves to be heard far and wide. Now, let's get started. This story is about a picture-perfect family from Tangail, a city in Bangladesh. The husband, Kamral, was born in 1962, and in 1988, he tied the knot with Lamia, a woman 2 years his junior. Lamia came from a well-off family in Tangail. Her father and uncle had owned plantations and farms since 1949. With her background, Lamia brought her expertise into managing these businesses alongside her husband. A year after their marriage, in 1989, they welcomed a son, Rashid. He was not only handsome but also a brilliant student. Although Rashid showed an interest in his parents' business, Lamia encouraged him to aim higher, nudging him toward a university education and a career in finance. She hoped he'd eventually leave Tangail and make a name for himself in the big city. Following her advice, Rashid studied at a prestigious college in Tangail before moving to Dhaka, where he landed a job as a finance officer at a private bank. With Rashid out of town, Mr. Kamral and Mrs. Lamia settled into life as empty nesters. At first, it seemed like their peaceful and harmonious family life would continue. But things took a turn. You see, Kamral had always been a bit of a charmer, believing he was quite the handsome man. He loved being the center of attention and often meddled in other people's business. While these traits had drawn Lamia to him when they first met, she had hoped he would mellow with age. And outwardly, he seemed to. However, when Rashid left for the city, Kamral began leading a double life. He secretly drank alcohol and socialized with younger women. While many people in their community knew about his behavior, they hesitated to tell Lamia, as she was well respected and admired. Eventually, though, the truth came out. Someone informed Lamia about Kamral's indiscretions, and the matter came to a head when she caught him with one of his employees at a hotel. Even after firing the employee, Lamia found herself unable to seek a separation. Her reasons were layered. She wanted to preserve the family's reputation and deeply loved her husband, despite his flaws. She felt that occasional infidelity, though painful, was forgivable, especially for the sake of her son. Lamia feared that Rashid, living far away, would be burdened by the shame of a broken family, especially if news of his father's behavior spread. She worried this might impact his chances of finding a good match in the future. Many families are strict about such things. So, Lamia forgave Kamral, who vowed to remain faithful from then on. She kept the scandal hidden from Rashid, hoping to shield him from the truth. Interestingly, nearly all of Lamia's employees were aware of Kamral's escapades. Yet, out of respect and loyalty, they promised to keep the matter confidential. In early 2019, Mrs. Lamia fell seriously ill and started receiving treatment at home. She delegated the management of her businesses to her employees and her sister-in-law, while trusting her husband, Kamral, to oversee the finances. Sadly, her condition worsened, and she passed away in February 2019. Her death devastated her son, Rashid, who even considered quitting his job in Dhaka. However, he remembered his mother's wish for him to build a successful career in the city and decided to stay. Fortunately, Rashid's girlfriend, Farzana, stood by him during this tough time. Farzana had been with him for about a year and worked as a customer support technician for an internet service provider. She often visited Rashid's office to handle network installations and troubleshooting. That's how they first met. Farzana was caring and supportive, nurturing Rashid emotionally and physically. She seemed to be everything he needed at the time. A couple of months after Mrs. Lamia's passing, in April 2020, Farzana introduced Rashid to her younger sister, Afroza. Afroza had just moved to Dhaka from Mymensingh, having lost her job due to the pandemic. With no job prospects, Afroza stayed with Farzana in her small apartment. Over time, Afroza's presence became a burden, especially as Farzana's work began to suffer. Many of her clients had paused operations because of the pandemic. Rashid stepped in to help, often bringing food and offering financial support to Farzana. This dynamic brought the three of them closer. Rashid shared stories about his late mother and the family business, and eventually, he suggested Afroza visit his father in Tangail to explore job opportunities there. Everyone agreed, but the plan was postponed because travel restrictions were still in place. After 2 months of living with her sister, Afroza grew increasingly close to Rashid. Then, in June 2020, everything unraveled. One day, out of curiosity, Farzana looked through Afroza's phone and stumbled upon WhatsApp messages between her sister and Rashid. The messages revealed a secret relationship between the two. Farzana was shocked and heartbroken. She never imagined her sister and boyfriend had been seeing each other behind her back. The discovery led to a heated confrontation between the sisters. When Rashid arrived, his attempts to smooth things over failed. He admitted he had fallen in love with Afroza and wanted to be with her instead. His apology only added fuel to Farzana's heartbreak. Feeling betrayed, she packed her things and left the apartment, disappearing without telling anyone where she was going. Meanwhile, Rashid and Afroza began openly dating. Rashid took over supporting Afroza financially and even started planning their future together, including marriage. As for Farzana, her story remains untold, but her departure left a bitter note in what was once a close relationship between the three. Long story short, 2020 didn't bring much economic relief for anyone, including Rashid. His job situation took a hit as some sub-branches of the bank he worked for began to shut down, and layoffs were inevitable. Senior employees were consolidated into the main branch, and while Rashid kept his job, his income was significantly reduced. On top of that, he was still supporting Afroza, his unemployed girlfriend, which made things even more challenging. In July 2020, Rashid's father, Mr. Kamral, called him with surprising news. He mentioned that Farzana, Rashid's ex, was now working at one of their family plantations. Kamral had apparently learned all about the messy breakup, but he brushed it off, suggesting that Farzana was a hard-working girl who deserved a chance. Rashid, exhausted by everything, simply told his father to do whatever he thought was best. Work was scarce, and if Farzana found a place there, so be it. By August, 30-year-old Rashid was gearing up for his wedding to Afroza. The couple returned to Tangail to discuss their plans with Rashid's father, mainly because they needed financial help. Afroza's family was struggling financially and couldn't contribute to the wedding at all. While staying in Tangail, they worked on wedding arrangements, but what should have been a joyful time quickly turned chaotic. Rashid's father dropped a bombshell. He too was planning to get married to Farzana, Rashid's ex. The announcement left Rashid in shock. His father had only been widowed for 6 months, and now he wanted to marry Farzana, who was not only Rashid's ex-girlfriend but also Afroza's sister. The situation was beyond awkward. Rashid confronted his father, demanding an explanation. But Kamral was unfazed. He made it clear that he loved Farzana, and Farzana loved him back. Age difference, gossip, none of it mattered to them. Kamral even revealed that Farzana would be managing the family's plantation and livestock business once they were married. Despite Rashid's protests, Kamral stood firm, leaving his son both furious and powerless. Afroza tried to reason with her sister, urging her to reconsider and find someone closer to her own age. But Farzana didn't care about her sister's opinion. Rashid sought advice from his uncles, hoping they would intervene, but their response only added to his frustration. They reminded him that his late mother had once mentioned that Kamral might remarry someday to avoid loneliness. Moreover, Kamral had previously demanded his rightful share of the inheritance, as well as Rashid's portion. To Rashid's dismay, his late mother had only allocated 15% of the family wealth to him while leaving 80% to Kamral, trusting him to secure Rashid's future, perhaps with a wealthy wife, just as Kamral had done in his youth. These revelations made Rashid question everything. He began to suspect that his father might have manipulated events, his mother's passing, the inheritance, and even control over the family business. But without concrete evidence, his suspicions remained just that, suspicions. Arguments and tension grew in the household. Kamral promised to cover all wedding expenses for Rashid and Afroza, but the gesture felt hollow to Rashid, who was still bitter about his father marrying Farzana. Despite his anger, there seemed to be no way to stop it. Kamral was determined, Farzana was indifferent, and Rashid was left feeling like a pawn in his father's grand plan. A week into their stay at his father's house, Rashid started noticing something strange. Afroza, his fiancée, was acting differently. She became distant toward him and seemed to be spending more time with his father, Mr. Kamral. She'd make him coffee, accompany him to the farm, join him in the garden, and even argue with her sister Farzana over who would get to accompany him to various wedding-related errands. Rashid shrugged it off, thinking maybe Afroza was just trying to win his father's favor since Kamral was footing the wedding bill. Still, it felt off. Then one night, in mid-September 2020, while Rashid was getting ready for bed, he overheard his father talking in the living room. Kamral said, "Farzana, tonight you don't need to come to my room. It's not your turn." Confused and uneasy, Rashid decided to check on Afroza, who should have been asleep in the next room. He tried the door, but it was locked from the inside. Shaking his head, he went back to his room, trying to dismiss the gnawing suspicion in his mind. Around 1 a.m., Rashid woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for a drink. On his way back, he noticed the door to Afroza's room was slightly ajar. He peeked inside. She wasn't there. His gut tightened. Something wasn't right. Feeling uneasy, he headed upstairs to his father's room. As he pressed his ear to the door, he heard Afroza's voice coming from inside. Fury boiled over. He banged on the door until Kamral finally opened it, standing there with Afroza by his side. Kamral tried to apologize, claiming this was all Afroza's doing. But then Afroza shocked everyone by admitting she had feelings for Kamral and wanted to break off her engagement with Rashid. She was cancelling the wedding. Rashid, devastated and enraged, stormed back to his room, packed his bags, and left for Dhaka the next morning without saying another word. Once back in Dhaka, Rashid called his two uncles to vent about the situation. They visited Kamral to confront him and demand an explanation. Unfortunately, as Kamral's younger brothers, their influence was limited. Kamral brushed off their warnings, saying he was simply trying to choose the best partner for himself. "Both Afroza and Farzana want to marry me now," he boasted. "I'm deciding who's the better fit for my life, and the other can go to Rashid. Simple as that." The uncles tried to warn him that the girls might just be after his wealth, but Kamral's response left them speechless. "You don't understand me. I've always been a conqueror of women." By December 2020, things took another turn. Kamral decided to kick Afroza out of his house, telling her to return to Dhaka and make amends with Rashid. But Afroza refused, insisting Rashid would never forgive her after what happened. Kamral, completely unfazed, declared that he had made his decision. He was marrying Farzana. As for Afroza, he told her to do whatever it took to win Rashid back, promising to cover all their wedding expenses if she succeeded. On a quiet afternoon around 4 p.m., Afroza headed to one of the family farms, where Farzana was overseeing some workers. Afroza asked her sister to step behind the shed to talk. But instead of a conversation, Afroza pulled out a knife and attacked Farzana. Though Farzana tried to defend herself, she couldn't overcome Afroza's rage. Tragically, she lost her life on the spot at just 29 years old. Believing there were no witnesses, Afroza planned to escape. However, several workers had seen the horrifying act and immediately alerted the authorities. Just 3 hours later, Afroza was arrested while hiding in an abandoned house. The news shook the entire family, but surprisingly, Mr. Camrell seemed indifferent. He reportedly remarked that with his wealth, finding another woman wouldn't be difficult. 2 days later, another shocking event unfolded. A young man named Emran arrived at Camrell's house, furious. His girlfriend, Jasmine, who worked on Camrell's farm, had accused the old man of making inappropriate advances toward her, twice. Emran brought his younger brother, Tariq, along, and their anger quickly turned violent. They attacked Camrell with a knife they had brought, fatally wounding him. Camrell died at 56 years old. After the attack, both Emran and Tariq surrendered to the police. The investigation into these events revealed a tangled web of deceit, greed, and betrayal, leaving Rashid stunned but strangely not heartbroken. His uncle in Tangale urged him to return to manage the family estate. While Camrell had intended to claim most of the inheritance, his untimely death meant everything automatically passed to Rashid, as Camrell had not formalized his will. During the investigation, Afroza confessed her motives. She admitted she was shocked by Camrell's wealth and saw an opportunity to escape the poverty she had endured since childhood. She schemed to win Camrell over, believing she could secure control of his money and businesses. Afroza claimed she gave Camrell everything he wanted, but when he chose Farzana over her, jealousy consumed her. She couldn't bear the thought of her sister gaining everything she desired. Further revelations painted an even darker picture of Afroza's past. Police informed Rashid that before their engagement, Afroza had been married twice. Both marriages ended because of her infidelity. She couldn't commit to just one man. In stark contrast, Farzana had been known for her kind and honest nature, which left Rashid regretting his decision to leave her for Afroza. By the time Afroza's trial began in May 2021 at the Tangale High Court, the evidence against her was overwhelming. There wasn't a single witness willing to defend her actions. The court found her guilty of premeditated murder, theft, she had been caught with some of Camrell's money in her pocket at the time of her arrest, and other charges. Afroza, now 32, was sentenced to life imprisonment. As for Emran and Tariq, their case also concluded later that year in July 2021. The court heard testimony that Camrell had repeatedly harassed Jasmine, making inappropriate remarks and even threatening to take her away from Emran. This behavior, coupled with Camrell's arrogant belief that his wealth gave him unchecked power, had fueled their anger. While the court acknowledged their frustration, it couldn't condone their actions. Emran was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and Tariq received a 10-year sentence. What lessons can we take from this story?